And now your host, Richard Thomas.
Good evening, and welcome to a special edition of It's a Miracle. Tonight's stories feature miraculous escapes from death, real people caught in perilous situations with seemingly no way out. In fact, you might not believe anyone could actually live through these events if it weren't for the video cameras that recorded them. We begin with a story of one man's desire to fly and the terrifying consequences when all his plans fail. Every year, Telluride, Colorado plays host to the U.S. Hang Gliding Festival, the only event in the country that features aerobatic competition, a freestyle form of flying that involves complicated stunts and maneuvers, often using smoke trails to heighten the drama.
Aerobatics are best done in calm, still air that doesn't move. On this particular day, we were preparing to fly in the competition, and I looked around and I didn't like the conditions.
The pilots that were flying were doing good routines, but they were complaining a little bit that the air was bumpy, or what we call rough.
I had this little red flag, a warning light, if you will, that said, no, this is not good conditions for aerobatics. And I did not do the routine that I'd planned on. It was a little bit on the scary side. I didn't want to have a failure. I didn't want to have a chute deployment. I just wanted to go out and do the round and get it finished up.
Coming in looking real good here. Let's see. All right, a beautiful landing.
The routines went pretty well until Eric Smith had his glider.
Looking through the viewfinder while Eric was flying, there was nothing he was doing that looked dangerous. There's nothing he was doing that looked out of the ordinary, except the fact that he was flying very fast.
Going into the inverted back center.
Eric's first maneuver was good, went over the top, real nice. He had a very, very strong dive going into his second maneuver, and as he pulled out, one wing failed.
I didn't even recognize it as an accident for a couple of seconds. I thought he was, doing sort of a barrel roll maneuver or something.
He immediately went into a spin, and he tossed his parachute. His parachute opened, and he came down under the chute.
Eric Smith, coming down under canopy here in the valley.
It was only a few minutes after Eric Smith's incident that Dan entered the aerobatic window to start his routine.
It started off beautiful, nice straight dive coming straight down.
That looks like the inverted patent bender to me.
Things changed from there.
GTR.
And somewhere between the bottom of the dive and about right here, the glider just ran out of gas. And it got to about here, it came to a complete stop, and then it started to go backwards. Hang gliders are designed to go forward only. Going backwards is really bad. Then it tucked almost completely over and broke. And then it began to spin. He gets the parachute out right away. We were watching this parachute just hang there.
Oh, Lord.
Always the optimist. I said, well, he has another parachute.
No, he's got it out again. He's got it.
And the second parachute comes out, and it doesn't open up either. And then it's wrapped back into the wreckage.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Dan had a problem, because in the spinning wreckage, there's very little that can be done to alter the course of what's going to happen.
Oh, my God. Come on, throw it on.
It was just unbelievable that even going through all the extra safety precautions of having two parachutes instead of the normal one, both of them not opening was beyond belief.
He had a couple of smoke bombs on his glider, which aerobatic pilots fly with because they leave nice trails and you can see the aerobatic maneuvers more easily. Well, of course, the smoke is now just going off in a big mess, and it made it look just that much worse.
Hang on. Hang on.
He spun 73 revolutions in 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
I couldn't tell what was pilot and what was glider because everything was spinning so fast.
Come on, stay on. Oh.
I didn't want to look, you know, it was something that I thought was so scary. You know, it's like watching a car crash or something. I turned off the camera and went behind the tent and started to cry.
I'm just watching a friend spinning to what I envisioned was his death.
Dan Murphy, the pilot of the glider, was unable to see the ground. And so he just closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable. And then a miracle happened.
I opened my eyes and I was sitting on top of the glider and did a quick check and realized that I was completely uninjured, much to my surprise. I broke one of my own rules by doing aerobatics in the turbulent conditions. The turbulence caused me to stall the glider. That caused the glider to slide backwards and tumble. The tumble caused the glider to break. As soon as the glider had broken, I no longer had any control over it. I was doing everything that I'd learned to do, but at that point there was nothing left for me to do but wait for the ground to come up.
We heard right away on the radios that he was okay, and it was just a real miracle.
Anytime a pilot does aerobatics, he's a test pilot. He's trying to determine what he and his craft are capable of doing.
And that day, Dan Butler proved that a hang glider is capable of performing a miracle. If you think it's safer on the ground than in the air, our next story will prove you wrong. In it, a young woman attempts a dangerous driving stunt, and to add to the danger, her brakes fail at the precise moment she needs them the most. It was the weekend of the Easter Jeep Safari in Moab, Utah.
And we'd had such a fun weekend. Now we were ready to go home, but we had one more thing that we wanted to do before we went home. And that was, go on Lion's Back.
The Lion's Back is a sheer rock outcropping that you can run up and down on. It wasn't anything to do with the Easter Jeep Safari. It is just one of the natural wonders that's located in the area that you can get to.
Hang on, Lou, hang on.
We'd all kind of watched different people go up and down Lion's Back, and then Tina and Sean decided they wanted to drive their Blazer up.
The first time we drove up, Tina was with me, and the adrenaline was really pumping, and we were both pretty excited. When you're going up Lion's Back, you're just crawling, you're barely moving because it's so steep.
Okay, there they are at top, and then
When you get to the top, it's kind of like a weight's taken off you, and you can kind of relax because you're tense going up. Then you start down, and it's like you want to just mash on the brakes and make sure you don't move at all, but you need to just keep a steady, even pressure on the brakes. You don't want to lock your tires up.
When they finally reached the bottom, Sean asked his wife if she'd like to try driving up the ridge, thinking that she would refuse.
To my surprise, she said yes.
And And so Tina got behind the wheel for a second attempt.
When I realized that Tina was driving, call it a woman's intuition, but I felt like Tina was not going to come back down that hill the same way she went up.
Hello, girl.
Tina didn't really seem to have any problems at all with going up. She did really fine. And when we got to the top, we had to turn around. Tina was kind of scared about that because there's not a whole lot of room to turn around at the top. So I got out of the vehicle and I helped her back and forth, and it took a couple tries to get it turned around.
As Tina started down, I knew immediately she was in trouble because her back brake locked up.
So I told Tina, I said, just ease up on the brakes a little bit. And Tina said, there are no brakes. And at this point, I knew that we were in big trouble.
That was probably the hardest few seconds of my life.
I don't remember the impact. I remember people were immediately there trying to get us out. And I called Tina's name, and she answered me. I wasn't sure how bad she was hurt or where we even were.
It all happened so fast. I mean, I thought I was just dreaming. It was just a bad dream, and I was going to wake up. And when I opened up my eyes, I knew it wasn't a dream.
After the victims had been loaded in the ambulances, that's when I found out that there was a videotape of the accident scene. I received one from a person that was shooting a side angle, and also one from a head-on view.
You guys move, Brandon. You guys, come on, get back. Oh, come on.
And I was able to watch the accident like I was there. And by using that, my investigation concluded that there was no alcohol used while she was driving the vehicle or at any time. And they were trying everything humanly possible to slow the vehicle down.
I shake every time I see it. It just makes me sick to my stomach knowing that we almost lost our lives. I mean, it could have gone the other way so easily.
I learned quite a few lessons from this. The most important lesson is when you're out four-wheeling, you need to be more observant as to what kind of situation you're getting yourself into. I didn't think about any kind of danger or having to get out of it. If I'd have thought about that, I probably wouldn't have gone up there in the first place.
I really believed that we had a guardian angel that day. You know, it said it was going to be a bumpy ride, but, you know, we'll get you down as easy as we can.
Our next miraculous escape from death concerns a domesticated animal that managed to survive in the wild for over 2 years. That in itself is a miracle. But what makes this story even more incredible is what happened after the animal was found, clinging to life on the side of a mountain. The horse was discovered stranded on a mountain near Birdseye, Utah, by 2 cougar hunters. And local authorities immediately made their way to the remote area.
We just kept circling and circling the area and continued searching until we came across the horse in the snow.
First thing I was concerned about was his condition. I don't think he would have lasted another 3 or 4 days, personally. It's hard to judge the will of a horse, and that's what was keeping him going at that point, was simply his own willpower.
We dug this area out. Wasn't standing up to his belly in snow.
I felt like the option of destroying the horse was probably going to be a very real possibility.
What really amazed me is that the horse didn't shy and spook away from us. He wanted attention. He liked being petted. He was a sweet horse. I really liked him. I didn't want to leave him up there. I don't think anybody else did either.
They decided to name the horse E.T. because he'd been left behind with no way home.
The reason that we decided to rescue the horse was that it was obvious that horse belonged to someone. He was there because he was left behind or got lost. It wasn't his fault, and he and I had become attached.
We put the blanket back on him and let him air out a little bit. It's a nice heavy quilted blanket. The easiest would have been to walk him down, so we packed the trail with snowmobiles to see if he could walk on that packed trail, and he was too heavy to do that. He fell through. So we eliminated that, and that left us with airlifting him with a helicopter. Our problems with removing him with a helicopter was, first of all, we don't have a helicopter.
We approached the local newspaper and television station, asked them if they would give us some help in running a little story on this animal and indicate that we'd like to rescue it and needed a few dollars to do that. The Army caught the story on the news.
So I called up the Utah County Sheriffs, and I explained to them that we did have a helicopter and that we had permission from our chain of command to do this.
We made arrangements and actually set a time to airlift the horse off of the mountain.
They also arranged for a veterinarian to give E.T. a sedative prior to its nerve-wracking flight.
I wonder if he's broke. Yeah, he is.
E.T.'s temperament was exceptional. Rather surprising for an animal that had been away from people.
The horse is just a sweetheart. We brought in the harness that we were going to airlift him off the mountain. It was built for moose and elk, and we weren't sure it was going to work.
My greatest fear was to have some sort of a catastrophe happen. The horse not reacting as planned to the sedation, the horse struggling excessively during its flight.
But there was no time left to worry. The helicopter had arrived.
The crew from the helicopter came over and talked with us about the harness, and we hooked the harness up again for the final time.
Get out of the way. We don't want him choking on the way down.
Definitely.
Okay, let's check this bar again.
Let's see what we got.
We also blindfolded E.T. So that he couldn't see what was going on and become frightened with being lifted off of the ground.
And moments later, E.T. was flying home.
The actual flight was probably not more than about 10 minutes. But once we hovered over the top of the horse, we couldn't see the horse at all. And I was very concerned about dropping him. We kept the horse about 20 feet off of the ground. So until we got right over the point where we wanted to land the horse. We were concerned that he might fall on the asphalt. When the horse's feet finally touched the ground, 2 or 3 people rushed out to stabilize the horse. From that point on, we knew we had it made.
We ran over it and we unhooked him, and we took the towel off of his eyes, and we started walking him around to walk this medicine off of him. He seemed a little dozy when we got him onto the ground, but he perked out of that real quick. I was really excited that the horse was okay, and I'm glad that we were able to be a part of it and help him out. It was really fun.
It was almost as soon as we got E.T. back off of the mountain and into a safe environment in the shelter, And we'd gotten all kinds of calls concerning the horse, and one of them said that she was the owner of the horse.
After I seen him on television for the first time and it showed the markings on his face, my heart just swelled with pride. I thought, that's my horse, and he's going to come home to me. I get to see him again. We had sent the horse to the sheep herd with my father-in-law. He was going to help us get him in shape. And he was shoeing the horse and went in to get a bite to eat, and when he came out, the horse was gone. When I knew my horse was lost, I felt like I had lost my best friend. We went looking for him and never did find him. After the years had gone by, I had just figured that he had died up in the hills, that there was no way he could survive up there. So when we got up to the animal shelter and we walked out of the shed and I seen his face, I couldn't believe it. I burst out in tears. It was just so emotional.
E.T. has gone home now, and it's been a story that I don't think any of our storybook writers could have written better than what we had. It's really been a terrific experience.
There are some occupations that by their very definition put people in harm's way. One of these is police officer. And the narcotics investigator in our next story can testify to the dangers. He can also testify to something more, that miracles do happen. The day began at approximately 4 a.m. for the capital city's area narcotics task force.
Police, open door. Police.
Several drug raids had been planned that day, and the local media had been invited to ride along.
Slide all the way over to the right.
On that particular morning, they arrested several people on related drug charges.
The suspects were taken to the Bureau of Narcotics, where they were fingerprinted and booked.
Officer Danny Norton nonchalantly asked us if we just wanted to do one more. We didn't have much as of yet, so we said, we'll take this trip with you. It turned into the best story we had in quite some time.
When they arrived at the suspected drug dealer's home, Officer Norton ran to the front of the house while his partners covered the back entrance.
I just jumped out and started rolling the camera.
Boys! And then, suddenly, shots were heard coming from the rear of the house.
I did a 360 turn to see where I was. I went to the right of a car for the car to be between me and the trailer.
Luckily, none of his fellow officers had been injured during the gunfire.
That son of a bitch shot at her. I think I got him.
But as he entered the house, Norton was hit point blank in the chest during another round of shots.
I thought the situation was out of control when Danny Norton was rolling out of the back door of the trailer. I thought he was shot. I didn't know whether to put the camera down and go up and help him pull him out of the trailer.
Vince, get the radio and call an ambulance.
I was still not sure whether I was shot. And once outside, I started checking myself to see. I knew I'd fired 11 shots, and I knew I needed to change magazines because I felt like there would be more confrontation with this individual. My heart was beating pretty fast, because when something like this happens, you go into either flight or fight syndrome. It was time to solve the situation before anybody else got hurt.
You guys got a mirror?
Well, he hollered out, "Do you have a mirror?" And obviously I didn't have a mirror.
I saw a 2x4 on the ground, so I knocked the mirror off the truck so I could use it as a makeshift periscope to look around the refrigerator and see where the individual was at. And when I got back,
The suspect's wife was then starting to talk to us. I took the badge off of my neck and threw it into the kitchen so they could plainly see that we were the Bureau of Narcotics. And we finally convinced her to slide the weapon across the room so we could see it. Myself and Agent Marlette went on into the kitchen where we saw the suspect lying in the floor in a pool of blood. He did not look very good.
After the suspect came out of the house and it was all over, I felt just a sense of relief. Officer Norton took his vest off and he was showing us the bullet hole. It just grazed the protective metal plate in his vest. I thought he was real lucky.
But it may have been more than just luck. It may have been a miracle. You see, this was the only time during all the raids that day that he'd worn his bulletproof vest. Earlier that morning, as they were headed back to the station, another officer had asked him if he could borrow a flashlight.
And when I reached down to hand him the flashlight, it was laying on top of my vest. And at that time, something clicked in my head and told me to put the vest on. A lot of police officers feel like they're invincible. Once you've been doing it a while, you think the badge protects you from anything. And something told me, you're supposed to wear your vest.
And that voice, whether it was survival instinct or a guardian angel, saved Dennis Norton's life by a fraction of an inch. We've already presented several amazing stories of survival this evening, but our next one is especially unique. It takes a young man from the brink of death to the pinnacle of success, a journey that no one expected him to make. Ever since he was a young boy, Kent DeSormo dreamed of becoming a jockey, regardless of the dangers involved.
And away they go. Teresa DeMar came away well.
Being a jockey's wife is very stressful. The danger of his work is just, it's something that you can't get used to. Every race, you just sit and hope that he comes back okay.
This young man is an athlete of the highest caliber, and he was winning many, many races.
Kent was having a wonderful year, and also we're expecting the birth of our first child.
At the beginning of December, Kent was well on his way to becoming the leading monies earned in a year jockey in the entire history of horse racing. And this, I'm sure, was his target goal as he was riding early on in the meet at Hollywood Park.
December 11th started out as just another average racing day. Nothing in particular early in the day gave me any signs of what was to come, and it's a day I'll definitely never forget.
Kent was riding number 11 that day, Judge Hammer.
It was rainy. The track was listed as fast, but it was wet and quickly getting muddy.
It was a good break. It was clean. The horses were running well. Judge Hammer was the favorite in that race because of his past performances that showed that he looked like he was going to win.
Moving up from the inside is Judge Hammer. Now Cartagena Slew 7.
The horse I was riding was Cartagena Slew. He has one run, one strong run. He'll give you everything he has. And my instructions were to save it for the stretch.
Now, rounding the far turn is when the race really begins, and Kent took his horse to the outside coming down the lane.
They're coming down the lane. They're coming to the 8th hole.
There were 4 horses right across the track, and then Judge Hammer kind of came between those as they spread out and took command as they were coming down the lane.
Here comes Judge Hammer, rolling up strongly. Judge Hammer.
Coming to the wire, Kent gave the horse 2 cracks with the whip, and it suddenly veered across the track and into the path of Joy Scott's horse.
When I hit him, it was shocking. I saved my horse for the finish, and in the stretch drive, he was giving me everything. And I look up and I see the 11 horse loose on the outside, You see a loose horse, you look for a rider, and there happened to be right in front of me, and it was too late.
Judge Hammer lost the rider.
The impact was incredible, and it scared me to death. I felt sick to my stomach.
When I returned to the jockey's quarters, I felt like I should call his wife to let her know what had happened.
My initial feeling when I heard about Kent's accident was, is it going to be this time that he's really hurt bad? And it was. He almost died the first night. They couldn't get his brain to stop bleeding. There was too much swelling, and they didn't think he would make it.
The stress and worry caused Sonia to go into premature labor, but Kent astounded his doctors with a miraculous recovery.
Even with all of the injuries he had, he managed to get out of the hospital and be there for our child's birth.
Can you imagine being all broke up, can't go to work, but you get the most wonderful Christmas present in the whole world?
There you go, Joshua.
It will be a day that I get chills. I have chills right now thinking about it. December was mentally a roller coaster ride for me. I had like 7 or 8 fractures that led everywhere, but the main fractures, they went all the way across my head, this way and that way. And well, I was out for 6 weeks, deeply concerned about when in the world am I going to be able to ride again?
When Kent was rehabilitating, I definitely had some doubts of him ever coming back, mostly because of the equilibrium problem.
I got dizzy on occasions, you know, if I would stick my head down between my legs and then stand up real fast. I was dizzy, and I wasn't about to play around with horses until I could do that.
In the meantime, Kent used a mechanical horse called the Equicizer that duplicates the rhythm and pace of a running horse.
It has a bridle on it, you know, it even looks exactly like a horse's head and everything, and I can sit up there and ride, you know. So actually what I would do is I would watch the replays at night, and I would ride 9 races. When the field would turn for home on TV, I'd start riding the Equicizer, so it was what I used to rehabilitate. I wanted to prove that I could do it again. Can I be number 1 again, you know? Can I?
And several weeks later, he had his chance.
Coming back since being injured in a spill on December the 11th, last year's nation's leading rider, Jockey Kent Somo.
On the day that I rode my first horseback, Shrewd Vixen, I can still see the bars of the gate in front of me, and I'm thinking, am I gonna fall? Am I ready? What are these people gonna think? I have to perform like I've never performed before. But the adrenaline pump you get about the idea that you might win, that's what makes you forget about the fears of what might happen.
Oh, where they go?
As the doors opened, I swear for 30 yards I was completely lost. It was like,
Priest of Mar came away well, so did Shrewd Vixen from the inside gate.
The first thing I did was cut the corner, split the horses. You know, went through every tight spot I could, whether it was the right or wrong decision, just to prove that I wasn't scared.
Shrewd Vixen gets the lead. Common treads a late run too, but it's Shrewd Vixen in front. And Shrewd Vixen gonna make Kent Somo return a winning one. Shrewd Vixen wins it from...
This guy was almost dead, and he came back and he won the very first race. That shows you what kind of a champion athlete this guy is.
We end tonight's show on a sweet note. You've probably all heard stories about the kitten trapped in a tree and the fireman who rescues it. Well, we have a firefighter who goes the extra distance to save a kitten's life, and in the process, performs a miracle. As Superior, Wisconsin firemen cleaned up after a major fire, they heard the sound of kittens.
One of these kittens was in bad shape, showed no signs of life at all.
No one had been injured in the fire that day, and Lenny was determined to keep it that way. He immediately began working to save the kitten's life. But firefighter Jim Laoconon had his doubts.
I thought, I don't think this is gonna work.
But Lenny refused to give up and began CPR.
Based on the knowledge that I have for our fellow man, I used lighter breaths of air, lighter compressions on the chest, and watched for an air exchange to see if I could get some air to come out of the kitten's lungs.
I thought, well, if he's doing this, I'll go to the rig, I'll get our oxygen and see if that'll help. The first little shot, it kind of made a little jerk, like it's gonna do some good, you know?
But the reaction appeared to be involuntary, and the kitten continued to refuse to breathe on its own.
I kept with it to try and do everything I could to save that kitten. I started stimulating the kitten's spine by rubbing my fingernails on it to try and introduce some kind of pain or stimulus to make the kitten respond.
And then Lenny would give it another little breath and then continue to do this procedure for what seemed like forever. I had to go back to my rig, and then Jim came over.
I figured, well, he's been there a long time, so we traded jobs just to, share in the responsibilities of what was going on. I was a little concerned that we might blow too hard into the poor little animal and hurt him, but Lenny was real gentle and real careful.
Lenny's job was to save lives, but this one had a special meaning for him.
I've had pets all my life, and I know how important it is to have a pet and to lose a pet. After 12 to 14 minutes, the kitten started moving its legs, taking breaths of air, the eyes opened up, and I started to think to myself, hey, this is great. There's a possibility that we're going to save this kitten.
I'd seen the kittens moving, the legs starting to kick, and I thought, this is a miracle.
And the miracle has a doubly happy ending, for not only did Lenny save a life, he found a new friend for life. Lenny adopted the kitten and named it Smudge, fireman's slang for small fire. That's our show for this evening. Thank you for joining us, and a special thanks to all the people who shared their remarkable stories tonight on It's a Miracle. It's our hope that whenever you need one, you'll find a miracle in your life too. Until next time, I'm Richard Thomas. Good night.